What would happen if you woke up in the middle of a medieval village where disease lurks in every breath, every straw mat, every drop from the village well? If even the wind outside turns into a silent enemy, would you survive? Welcome to History for Sleep, where we don't just listen to history, we walk slowly into it, bare feet in the mud, ears hearing the rats gnaw at night, eyes fixed on fading embers. If you find this journey both strange and captivating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so together we can keep lighting more candles of the past. And now, let me take you on a journey. A slow step into the dream of history where plague clouds the medieval village and survival itself becomes a fragile miracle. You open your eyes before dawn. The low thatched roof drips with dew, drops falling onto the muddy floor below. A rooster crows in the distance, not the proud, heroic crow of painted scenes, but hoarse, broken, like an apprentice musician dragged out of bed too early. The sunrise, then, is not majestic. It is pitiful. Much like you. You pull up the old blanket. It reeks of mildew, of winters long past, and of rats, the uninvited but faithful roommates. One small rat darts away, quick, as if late for an appointment. In the time of plague, it is busier than you. You chuckle under your breath, so the true rulers of this village are not the lords, but the rodents. Your joints crack as you sit up. Cold mud seeps into your feet, crawling up your shins like icy water. You pick up a chipped clay bowl with a little water left in it. You sip. It tastes cold, bland, with a metallic tang of rusted iron. But at least, it's not as costly as the weak beer at the tavern, the one that leaves both men and rats drunk, while the innkeeper stays sober enough to count his coins. Outside, the fog lies thick, swallowing rooftops whole. A dog howls, hoarse and long, as if to accompany the mournful toll of church bells. Historians still argue, did villagers understand anything about the causes of plague? But you, breathing in a full chest of damp morning air, know a simpler truth. Any strange scent in the wind is enough to make the heart tremble. You rekindle the fire. Flames crackle softly. Ash drifts upward. Light flickers weakly, as if mocking you. Watching it, you remind yourself another day begins, though no one knows how it will end. Ash, fire, wind, and an empty stomach. It growls faintly, pulling you back to the kitchen corner, where a piece of stale bread waits. You sit at a wooden table worn so thin that every crack could tell a story. On it lies a loaf, old and hard as a charred log. You try to break it, and it answers with a brittle snap, crumbling like the ashes in the hearth. Perhaps it would serve better as a weapon than as food. You dip a piece into a steaming bowl of watery vegetable broth. In truth, vegetable means a few wilted leaves gathered from the field, boiled to trick your stomach into thinking this is a meal. You chew slowly, teeth grinding against the crust like stones. The taste is no better than dry hay mixed with mud, a dish that even a cow might sue you for stealing from its menu. A rat pokes its head out from under the bed, eyes glittering, watching you with fascination. Perhaps it thinks this human doesn't know how to savor food. You chuckle, a crumb flies from your mouth, falls to the ground. The rat darts forward, snatches it, vanishes. Fair enough. You call it breakfast. It calls it a feast. You sip the broth. The liquid slips down your throat, thin,
leaving behind an aftertaste hard to name.
a touch of damp soil, a hint of rotting straw. Historians still argue whether peasants during plague years had enough nutrition. If they tasted this, the debate would end instantly with a sigh, longer than the church bells toll. Outside, wind whines through the crooked wall, carrying with it a strange damp odor. You pause, spoon frozen mid-air, ears straining. Footsteps? Whispers, faint and far? Then silence again, leaving only the wind, an uninvited guest. You set the bowl down. Your belly still aches, not full, not starving, only surviving. Sometimes that is enough. You exhale, glance at the crumbs left on the ground. Another rat scurries out, hauling them away, leaving the floor cleaner than your effort ever could. You rise, pull on a thin cloak, and push the door open. The fog still hangs thick. Mud lies soft beneath your feet, swallowing your first step outside. You pull the cloak tighter, push the door open wider. Fog presses in, cold, like an invisible hand, across your face. Ahead, the narrow village path is soaked, turned to mud by the night's rain. Each step lands with a wet squelch, as if the earth itself wishes to hold you back. Mud clings to your worn sandals, heavy, dragging your feet like 2 blocks of earth. You walk slowly, breathing in the wind, thick with damp straw, wood smoke, and something else, sharper. Perhaps the carcass of forgotten livestock, or something no one dares to name. Historians still debate, did peasants know the difference between the stench of death and the everyday smell of rot? But you, sniffing the morning fog, need no debate. The smell of death has its own way of clinging to the throat, like a debt no one wants to pay. The path lies empty. Now and then, a dog barks from behind a shut house, then falls silent, as if remembering that barking will not wake a master already at rest. In the mud you see footprints, stopping suddenly before locked doors. Look closer, and you notice faint drag marks, fading into the fog before vanishing. A black crow flaps down onto a bare branch, cawing hoarsely. The sound chills you, not from fear, but because it echoes the rasp of a sick man's cough. Hard, in these times, to tell what sound belongs to nature and what belongs to plague. You continue on. Wind whistles through holes in an abandoned roof, a long, hollow note, like a cracked flute. A free concert, you think, if anyone still had the heart to laugh. You duck under a cobweb jeweled with dew, nearly slip on a deep puddle. This road, difficult on normal days, now feels like a trap, greased by death's hand. Rats scurry across, leaving thin tracks on the mud. They are bold now, no longer fearing human eyes. You wonder, in this plague, are they the true lords of freedom, needing no distance, no ritual, no care for who they cross? A bitter thought, but true. The fog still hangs heavy. But at the path's end, the village well looms, a dark mouth swallowing light. Once people gathered here, to talk, to share news. Today, whispers await you there. You pause, inhale deeply. Your sandals suck against the mud with each step. Dawn is not yet clear, but the day has begun. And on this muddy road, you know you are about to hear words that will be hard to swallow. You approach the well slowly. Fog clings, mud pulls, and the well rises like a gaping mouth, ready to swallow every whisper. Its rim is lined with damp stones, green moss clinging like an old scar. You lean close. The smell rises, earthy water, cold air, but also the odor of people, of ash, of straw, of days no one dares to name aloud, plague. Around the well, a few figures gather. Only a handful. Most villagers hide behind shut doors, frightened as birds before a storm. But still, a few remain, too curious or too poor to stay inside. Their cloaks are tattered, hems caked in mud, shoulders trembling, eyes darting nervously in the fog. Their voices rise in low murmurs, breaking off suddenly whenever someone nears, as if even words themselves could spread disease. You step closer, catching the first fragments. Down in the lower hamlet, the blacksmith's house, no one's opened the door. Another voice cuts in, trembling. Someone saw a cart last night, covered in cloth, rattling down the road. You stand still, letting the words fall into your ears, like ash onto dying embers. Rumors spread faster than the wind, and while bread may be harder than stone, rumor is soft as mud, easy to swallow, easier than the thin soup from the morning. An old woman bowed her head, whispering in a voice like wind slipping through a crack. They say in the next village, the sickness comes from rats. Rats running everywhere. No one dares kill them. They say they carry souls. You glance down at your feet. Just then, a rat slithers through the mud, its tail tracing a crooked line. You give a faint laugh. Carrying souls? Or just fleas? If anyone ever wrote it down, surely these rodents would be remembered as priests and coffins combined for all of Europe. A young man cleared his throat, trying to sound wiser than the rest. I heard in the city, they say it is God's punishment. The greedy, the traitors, the lustful, all will be taken. You sigh. Here there is little greed, no luxury for lust, but plenty of hunger. If this is punishment, then perhaps God has the wrong address. Historians still argue, did rumors back then help people survive, or make them die faster from fear? But for you, standing here at the village well, hearing each whisper, it is clear, rumors are another kind of food. They don't feed the body, but they feed the imagination. And imagination can be deadlier than the plague itself. You lower a bucket. The rope grinds against wood, groaning like teeth grinding in sleep. The bucket strikes the water with a hollow splash, ripples spreading, distorting your reflection. You lift it to drink. The water is cold, with a musty tang, but at least clearer than words. You swallow, warmth stirring faintly in your belly, while your ears still catch broken phrases. That house hung garlic, herbal charms, the healer is coming soon. A mother pulled her child close, whispering, "Don't touch the well, child." Even water can carry it. The child nodded obediently, but its eyes fixed on your bucket, curious, envious. In that moment you realize, even foul water is as precious as gold when the whole village thirsts to believe it clean. The murmurs rise again, faster this time. And they say far away in Europe, thousands are dead. Corpses piled high, no time to bury them. Some say it came with merchants. Traders always bring death in their packs. No, it was the comet. Everyone saw it blaze last year. That was the sign. You stand in the swirl of rumors, feeling as if you are in a market. Only here, instead of vegetables, people are selling fear. And as in every market, the sellers exaggerate, the buyers swallow it whole, and everyone goes home with a belly full of something no one can truly eat. You let the bucket drop and turn away. The fog begins to thin, and faint morning light slips over the low rooftops.
But no one dares call it hope.
For as the light rises, it only reveals more clearly the shuttered houses,
The doors that will never open again.
You step away from the well. Behind you, whispers still flow, blending with the wind, like a twisted lullaby. Rumors linger, more persistent than a meal, more enduring than fire.
You trudge back toward your hut,
Your sandals heavy with mud, as if you were carrying an entire field on your feet. Each step squelches, as though the earth itself clings to you, unwilling to let go, perhaps because it has no one else left to hold. Inside, the air still reeks of last night's smoke, like the stale breath of a drunkard who never leaves the tavern. In the corner, the fire lies spent, just a few glowing embers, wheezing faintly, like a toothless elder dozing in a chair. You crouch, stir them. A crackle, a flicker, a tiny flame forcing a weak smile, like a child too tired to wake. In the time of plague, even fire has lost its enthusiasm. You drag out the clay pot,
pour in a little well water.
the sound is lively, but the liquid is so scant.
You might as well call it a drop of hope.
Instead of a meal, a few limp greens. Plants, even goats would ignore, go in, twisting in the water like awkward swimmers.
You add a clove of garlic,
A treasure worth as much as gold. They say garlic drives away sickness. You think, if garlic truly had such power, peasants would have been superheroes long ago. The water begins to boil, tiny bubbles rising. The bubbling sounds like an empty stomach, complaining against such poverty. You stir with a battered wooden spoon, its clack, clack, steady as a war drum, though here the battle is only against hunger. How fitting, your feast has 3 guests, you, the rat, and the pot itself. You lift a spoonful to your lips. The taste is thin, bland, faintly acrid, like someone rinsed their shoes in rainwater and offered it to you. Still, you swallow, breathe deep, and feel a trace of warmth spreading through your belly. In truth, when hunger gnaws deep enough, anything becomes a delicacy. If some famous chef were dropped into this century, he'd go mad. Michelin stars? How could they shine when the whole sky is already black? A rat creeps out from the hay, eyes brighter than the fire. It gazes at your bowl with a hunger almost reverent. You tap your spoon on the table, mutter, and try it, and you'll see. This isn't a buffet, it's just the appetizer of hell. The rat flinches, then peeks out again. You sigh. Even rats never give up. Are they wiser than you? Another sip. The spoon taps the bowl again and again, a ritual in itself. Historians still debate what peasants ate to survive the plague. If they could hear this rhythm, they would understand. Sometimes survival is nothing more than chewing what cannot be chewed, swallowing what should not be swallowed, and calling it life. You set the spoon down, glance into the pot. A few scraps of wilted greens drift, tiny bubbles mocking you. You chuckle too, realizing the soup would serve better as a purge than a meal. But no matter, here any liquid that doesn't kill you instantly is considered a gift. Outside, the wind howls through the cracks, mingling with distant bells. Death knell or prayer bell, you can no longer tell. But surely, no one rings the bell for this soup. It doesn't deserve it. You sigh, pull your cloak tight, lean back against the wall. Your belly has quieted, though it is far from full. Strange how survival demands no fullness, only that you haven't yet died. From the hay comes more rustling. The rat returns, this time with a companion. Together, they sniff at the last whiff of garlic. Arms crossed, you think, if they eat and don't drop dead, perhaps you're safe another day. You laugh aloud, a dry, short laugh, echoing in the empty hut. Sometimes thin soup doesn't feed the body, but it feeds irony. And irony, perhaps, is what keeps you awake. You rest the spoon aside, watch the fire fade. Yellow light crumbles into gray ash, slow as your eyelids drooping. Belly muted, wind still howling, rats still scratching. And you, a temporary survivor, sit among them like a spectator of the universe's silent comedy. Darkness falls quickly, as if even the sun is afraid, and flees. Inside, the fire is gone, only a few glowing coals, blinking like the tired eyes of a sleepless watchman. You pull your blanket close, sink into the damp straw, hoping for a little peace. But just as your eyes close, the true music of night begins. A rustle, then another. Tiny footsteps, quick and deliberate. Rats. Not one, an entire troop. They scurry by the hearth, through the hay, along the wooden walls. Teeth gnaw, scraping like a clumsy fiddler sawing on rusted strings. You open your eyes. The low ceiling still streaked with smoke, stirred by the draft. The sounds continue, rats scratching, rats leaping, rats running. Each makes its own rhythm, and together they become an orchestra, one no one would ever pay to hear. You chuckle softly. Ironic, isn't it? Out there, people hide from each other, afraid even of eye contact. Yet the rats gather boldly, feasting together, untroubled by the idea of contagion. If there were a prize for the most united community, humankind would surely come in second. One bolder rat climbs onto the table. It sniffs at the clay bowl, where a few drops of soup still cling. It licks once, recoils, then turns to stare at you, with bright, accusing eyes. Perhaps it's asking, "You call this food?" You shrug. Welcome to the time of plague. If you're looking for a fish market, you'll have to wait a few centuries. The rat scampers off, tail dragging across the wood. But another quickly replaces it, more patient, and the performance continues. You tilt your head back, watching their shadows flit across the floor. For a moment, it feels like a puppet show, staged with darkness as the curtain and rodents as the tireless actors. Outside, the wind wails through the cracks. Its howl weaves with the rats rustling, forming a strange symphony, nature as conductor, rodents as chorus. You, the lone audience, lie in between, shivering yet laughing. Sleep is hard, in a theater that never closes. But at least the admission is free. Historians still argue, were rats truly the sole culprits of the plague, or merely bystanders? But you, in this hut, need no debate. When they dash across your path, leaving their sharp, acrid musk behind, you know one thing for certain, guilty or not, they thrive far better than you. You pull the blanket tight, curl your legs, and try to lull yourself with their rhythm. Rustle, scrape, gnaw, like rain on a roof, except the rain is teeth and claws. Strangely, for a moment, the sound becomes a lullaby. Perhaps this is the rat's cruelest gift to humankind, turning intrusion into a cradle song. Your breath hitches, then steadies. Eyes grow heavy. The rats sing on. The wind howls. Ashes drift. Mud outside stays wet. But at least you are still breathing. And in the time of plague, breathing itself is a small victory. You close your eyes. The rats do not. Their chorus continues, as if the universe itself conspires to keep you awake. You turn, pull the blanket higher, the straw crunching under your back. Then, like almost everyone these days, you murmur a prayer. Hands clasped, lips moving. The prayer does not soar upward. It catches in the low thatch roof, clings to the smoke, circles your ears.
Perhaps God hears.
Or perhaps the rats hear first. Either way, at least someone is listening, and in these times,
Being heard is miracle enough.
you whisper, "Please, let tomorrow bring no more wooden carts." You've heard them before, their wheels rattling, gray cloth draped, a smell heavier than any wind. You beg, you hope, though deep inside you know, those carts work harder than the crops, and they never rest. You pause, then chuckle softly. Strange how people only remember God when nothing else remains. On normal days, you prayed for harvests, for rain. Tonight, you pray that no one cough outside your door. The angels must be weary from recording so many pleas for delayed death. Beside the bed, a small candle flickers. The flame burns low, wax dripping into long frozen tears. You watch it tremble, like your hands in the fields. How strange. Even fire looks afraid, as if it too wishes to escape its wick. From afar, a bell tolls. You can't tell if it's a call to prayer or a death knell. They sound the same. Slow, heavy, each strike dropping into the night fog. You inhale deeply. The bell serves as background music, while you recite your clumsy words, poetry without rhyme.
Historians argue,
Did peasants in plague years pray out of faith, or simply because nothing else could be done? But you, with lips still moving, know the truth. Sometimes prayer is not to ask, but to forget. To forget the rats gnawing, the neighbors' closed doors,
the broken breathing just beyond.
You clasp your hands longer, imagining someone listens. Perhaps God. Perhaps only yourself, repeating the words for your own comfort. And sometimes that comfort is strong enough to trick sleep. The candle shrinks. The embers cool. The rats retreat into shadow. The hut fills with silence, broken only by your slow, steady breath. You think, if tomorrow comes, I will pray again. If not, then let this prayer be farewell. You smile faintly, a thin smile, perhaps the last one of the day. But before sleep fully claims you, a cough erupts. Not a light cough, not dust in the throat, but a violent fit, wet, ragged, as if someone were trying to spit out their soul. It comes from the hut next door. In the silence of night, it rings clear, raw, like a knock on the door, without a hand to knock. You jolt upright. Your heart races faster than the spoon tapping the bowl earlier. The coughing continues, harsh, each convulsion pounding like a hammer against the thin wooden wall separating two families. And in that moment,
You understand.
the plague has arrived. It is no longer rumor at the well, no longer a village away. It now stands at your door, and doesn't even bother to knock. You clutch the blanket to your chest as though rags could form a fortress against the unseen. Smoke still lingers in the hut, stinging your eyes, clogging your nose. But it helps mask another smell, now seeping through the cracks, a sweet, sickly odor that no medical book is needed to name. The smell of a body preparing to abandon itself. You recall the rumor from this afternoon. They say the sickness spreads through breath, through a mere touch, and now you hear that very breath. Each cough from your neighbor feels like a thin veil passing through the wall, seeping into your space. Bitterly ironic, wooden walls keep out wind and rain, but not an enemy no one can see. You smile faintly, bitterly. Perhaps you should thank the rats. At least when they invade your hut, you can bang a spoon and they scatter. But the thing outside, you own no spoon large enough to scare it away. You listen. The cough grows weaker, replaced by faint moans, then silence. That silence is worse than noise. You picture the hut next door, a body curled on straw, a candle flickering, eyes staring blankly at the roof. Outside, the wind howls on, indifferent to human presence. You wonder, tomorrow, will the gray-draped cart stop at that door? The answer is nearly certain. But your mind loops in circles, as if hope itself could fool reality. Historians still argue, what did villagers think when a neighbor collapsed? Did they mourn or feel relieved that it wasn't yet their turn? You, sitting here, don't need scholars to explain. Inside your chest, both emotions coexist. Fear for them, relief for yourself. A selfishness, not noble, but deeply human. You touch the wooden wall, just inches from the other hut. The cold seeps into your skin. You pull back instantly, as if you had touched the plague itself. In the dark, you laugh softly to yourself. Strange how touching wood can terrify more than touching red-hot iron. You crawl back to bed, pull the blanket over your head, but the cough lingers in your ears, sticky as resin. Even after silence falls, you still hear it echo, carved into memory. The cough becomes a soundtrack to your sleep, a song you never wanted but are forced to hear. You lie still, breathing slowly, trying not to make a sound. A bitter thought slips in. If the sickness spreads through breath, then perhaps you could win by holding yours all night. Of course, you lose within seconds. Lungs are more stubborn than reason. Outside, the wind howls longer, slipping through the cracks, like a voice complicit in the plague. The rats still rustle, oblivious to tragedy. Tonight, they are the audience, and you are the unwilling actor in a play whose ending everyone already knows. You close your eyes, lips murmuring fragments of prayer left from earlier, not because you believe in their power, but because they muffle the memory of coughing. The night grows quiet, but the smell does not. It creeps through the cracks, coils into the straw, clings to the walls, seeps under the thin blanket. You breathe slowly, realizing sometimes the most terrifying thing is not sound, but smell. At first, it's faint, like wilted greens left in a pot. But soon it thickens, heavy, as if someone had mixed rotting straw, damp ash, and last year's carcass into a giant sack and hung it above your bed. You sniff, hoping it's imagination, but no illusion weighs so heavily. You pull the blanket over your face, try holding your breath. A grim thought, perhaps you should compete with yourself, see how long you can last. Moments later, your lungs revolt, forcing a deep gasp. And with it, the stench floods in. Fair enough. The plague doesn't need to strike. You knock yourself out with your body's weakness. The smell doesn't stay still. It crawls, climbs into your hair, clings to your clothes, seeps to your knees. You turn, but it follows. A chase with no end. You run in dreams. It pursues, and always it wins. The rats, of course, don't care. They scurry about, feasting as usual. Perhaps in this twisted universe, the only creatures immune to stench are the very ones that carry it. You laugh softly. We hate each other, yet at least they never complain about the gifts they bring. Outside, the wind rises, whistling through the cracks. Instead of dispersing the air, it carries a new scent, sickly sweet, unmistakable. You know it well, though few dare name it, the smell of death. From the hut next door, where the cough just ceased, it now drifts steadily. You sigh. How ironic. That neighbor once lent you a hoe, shared seeds. Now they share this too, the scent.
Historians argue,
Did people of the plague age, become numb to death's odor? Some say yes, that constant exposure made it ordinary. But you don't feel ordinary. This smell invades your dreams, wakes you in the night, makes you wonder, is it coming from outside or from your own flesh?
beginning to betray you.
You sit up, feed the fire. Ash swirls, glowing faintly gold. Ash has its own smell, faintly burnt, strangely warm, like the breath of fire itself. You inhale deeply, trying to flood your nose with smoke. Strangely, now the smell of burning, the very thing despised in normal days,
becomes a sedative.
a free drink, except this liquor burns the eyes instead of the throat. You think, perhaps someday, they'll say, peasants survived not through medicine, but through the habit of breathing smoke. The thought makes you chuckle until it triggers a cough. You stop immediately, afraid the neighbors might mistake it as your own contract with the plague. You return to bed. The smell remains, but now it mingles with smoke. Two enemies wrestle in your nose, and oddly, that duel makes breathing easier. You whisper one last prayer. Let it be,
If any scent must prevail tonight,
let it be smoke, not the other. Outside, the wind howls. In the darkness, you imagine a strange vision, thousands of scents drifting through the village like invisible ghosts. Some heavy, some light, all spinning in the air. And humans, small, fragile, can only inhale, exhale, and call that living. You close your eyes. The smell still seeps in, but sleep begins to creep with it.
perhaps because you're tired,
Perhaps because you've grown used to it, or perhaps because, at the edge of fear,
the brain invents its last joke.
turning the stench of death into a lullaby. You sigh, Pull the blanket tighter. Let the darkness wrap around you. The rats still scratch. The wind still moans. The ashes still fall. And the smell, the invisible enemy, now becomes a companion, clinging to every breath. A rattle echoes from afar, dry and steady, like a funeral drum beaten on rotting wood. You open your eyes. Not rats, not wind. Wheels. A wooden cart rolling slowly over the mud, carrying with it an unspoken truth. The dead are being taken away. Through the mist, the cart appears. Two great wheels creaking, grinding into the mud, as though the earth itself groans. A gray cloth covers the load, stained with dark blotches. You don't need anyone to explain what lies beneath. The weight drags the cart down, and each sway sends a dull thud, like firewood in a sack. But this isn't firewood. These were once neighbors, once market goers, once laughter at the well. Now, silence beneath cloth. The driver wears a dark cloak, hood pulled low. You can't see his face, only rough hands gripping the reins. The horse is skin and bone, trudging, wheezing louder than a bellows. It doesn't want to pull, but no one asks. In times of plague, no one is asked, only told. You stand pressed against your hut, stomach tight, and oddly, a bitter laugh rises. Once carts were for brides, now for corpses. The rituals change, but the bells remain the same, slow, steady, more like lullabies than laments. A door cracks open. An old woman peers out, hand trembling. She calls no name, sheds no loud tears. She only looks, then shuts the door again, as if afraid even her tears might carry the disease. You think, someday, historians may wonder why an entire generation did not cry aloud. The truth is simple. Crying drains strength, and weakness invites death. The cart creaks onward. Clack, clack. A black crow swoops down, lands on the cart, croaks harshly. It knows no reverence, for this is its feast. You watch, and a dry laugh escapes. Even crows have work during the plague. The dead are gone, the living are afraid, but the crows, they are welcome at every funeral. You recall the rumor from the well. In far-off Europe the bodies pile high, too many to bury. You imagine, if this cart never stopped, your village could become that rumor. And strangely, you're unsure what is more frightening, the truth or the truth embroidered with imagination. The driver calls softly. The horse halts. The cart stops before a hut across the road. The door opens. Two figures emerge, carrying a wrapped shape. They place it on the cart. No words, no cries. Only the sound of cloth shifting, mud sucking. Quick, cold routine. You hold your breath, waiting. Then the cart moves again. Wheels grind mud, the sound steady. Clack, clack. The rhythm becomes the music of the village. Rats gnaw in your hut. The wind moans outside, yet all now follow the cart's beat. In one night, the village has gained a new orchestra, instruments of bone, conducted by death. Historians still debate, were these body collectors heroes or unwilling laborers of history? You think more simply, hero or not, They did the work others refused. In the plague,
Even cleaning became a noble trade.
you return inside, sit by the ashes. The dying fire casts faint yellow on the walls, flickering with the fading rhythm of the cart. You whisper, "At least tonight, it did not stop at your door." Then you chuckle bitterly, happiness reduced to not being carried away on a wooden cart. You sit still, listening to the silence after. It is thick, almost solid. A silence with smell, with taste, clinging to the skin. You breathe in, breathe out, and know something still lurks within it. You shut the door. The warped wood groans, like an old man disturbed from sleep.
You drop the latch, tie the rope, wedge a log at the base. A defense that looks secure
Until you remember, rats slip through any crack. If creatures small as a hand can enter, then surely an invisible plague stands outside, laughing, hands on hips. Lock it if you like, friend. You chuckle to yourself. All your life, you feared thieves, war, the Lord's taxes, but never the air itself. Now you bar the door not to protect belongings, but to keep out the wind. Yes, the wind, once life-giving, now suspect. Inside you coax a small flame from the ashes. It flickers weakly, yellow light trembling on the warped wood. You huddle in your blankets, convincing yourself this hut is a fortress. Straw becomes a mattress, ashes become guards, the fire's crackle becomes a trumpet of warning. A tiny kingdom where you are both king and prisoner. You finish the last of the cold soup. The garlic's sharpness has faded, leaving only a bitter aftertaste, like fallen leaves. Still, you drink it all, for in this fortress, nothing is wasted.
You glance around.
Your stores are little more than a few shriveled potatoes and a sack of seed yet unsown. At this rate, even the rats might file a complaint for lack of rations. Outside, the wind rises, rushing through the thatched roof. You hear the straw rustle, like a crowd whispering at your door. You pull the blanket close to your face and think perhaps the wind is the plague's most loyal messenger. If so, what use is a lock when the whole roof is a window for the wind? The thought makes you laugh. Short, dry, the crack of splitting wood. The rats return. Bold, they patrol like watchmen. One climbs the table, sniffs the empty bowl, then leaps down. Another rummages in the sack of seed, dragging some away. You shake your head. At least they never believed in isolation. To them, the world is one long feast. The emptier of people, the merrier.
You burrow deeper into the blanket.
Breathe slow and whisper a calculation. If I don't step outside, don't touch anyone.
Don't drink from shared water.
Perhaps I'll be safe. A simple logic, much like the priest's advice from the church.
Yet repeat.